Thank you for that, Kenzie, and our music ministry. I also want to take a moment to thank Gita, who was the one that led our meditation. And it's part of March Meditation Madness, where we've been, during this month, just bringing you different types of meditations on a Sunday morning. And there's other ways in which you can be connected to that. And you can go to our website and still sign up for it and still be a part of it. I also want to tell you that next Sunday, I'm really excited. Next Sunday, we have a guest speaker. Her name is Ana Quintana. She is a minister at Unity of the Triangle, and I always get the Carolinas mixed up. It's in one of the Carolinas. And she's going to be with us. She's going to be speaking about prayer and the practice of peace. And after her service, she's going to have a workshop to really support us in getting into that practice of peace that many of us have been looking to create deeper grooves in. Reverend Ana Quintana is well known in the Unity movement, especially when it comes to the Spanish part of the movement. She has her own metaphysics radio show on Unity Online Radio, and it also is broadcasted through Univision Radio in Puerto Rico, the #1 radio station there, and she has one of the top radio spots in Puerto Rico, and it actually goes nationally. So you don't want to miss her next Sunday here as part of the services, and already get your calendar working so that you can join her for the workshop after the service. Now, one of the things that I have really come to recognize, especially in the last couple of weeks as we've been talking about the transition and the wonderful things that, or the wonderful movements that are taking place within the ministry, I've been really connected and recognizing the power that this community has had on my own life and the amazing ways in which being a minister here has really just expanded who I am. I say that because one, just this past Friday was the 5-year anniversary where my friend and mentor and my minister of 16 years ordained me as a Unity minister, which is actually, I became a licensed Unity minister 7 years ago. And my God, what an amazing journey it has been. As many of you know, I've been part of this community for 20 years. Came in as a small little boy of 24 years old, open to seeing what life could be. But I also realized just, not only do we receive the message that we need to receive, right? Like that's been our experiences on Sundays, but I have to tell you, I speak the message I have to receive. Because as I'm talking about boundaries today and healthy boundaries, it didn't even dawn on me until late last night that an experience that I'm having with my family was really calling me to not only vocalize my boundaries, which I think I've done pretty well with, but to hold myself accountable to the boundaries that I have set. And it's really shifted, and even this morning as I was just thinking about it, I'm like, oh, now I know what needs to be done through me. You know, and it's just really, really exciting to see my own personal evolution. And hopefully, through the experiences that you get on Sundays here and the ways in which you're connected, you can also see your own evolution. Now, I have to tell you, in the 7 years that I've been a minister here, I feel my jokes have gone better and better and better. A few of you have actually shared about my jokes. I'll leave it at that. But I do have some about boundaries that I want to share with you today. And see if you can see yourself in some of these. Like the mother who says, my daughter thinks I don't respect her personal boundaries, or at least that's what she wrote in her diary. Or the guy, those that laughed really loud and clapped have opened up a diary or two, right? What about the guy who says, I just got fired from my job at Google Maps. Apparently, I was terrible at drawing the boundaries between countries. They said I was borderline incompetent. That's more of a slow one, all right. But let's think about our boundaries, right? Let's think about the ways in which we're showing up and inviting people to sort of show up in partnership with us. You know, it's a joke, right? Like borderline incompetent, but if we really sit back, how many of us sometimes feel a little incompetent, or that we just need a little bit more practice in creating those borders, in creating those boundaries? And a lot of times I feel we don't do that because we want to please, we want to feel accepted, we think it's the right thing to do, whatever it may be. And how many of us, when we found ourselves not being clear about our boundaries and allowing ourselves to step beyond them, all of a sudden start feeling resentful? Yeah, right? And that resentment can really grow and fester, especially if we don't even recognize the boundaries that maybe we feel but haven't vocalized even to ourselves. And so part of today is really to also just recognize what boundaries you want to set for yourself. And you know, times I think that when we don't create boundaries, it's this fear that we're going to be separating ourselves from other individuals. But if you really think about it, what is more separating than holding resentment against each other? You know, we think that by creating boundaries, we're building up these walls, but it's resentment, it's hurt, it's anger that are really the walls that we want to break through. Boundaries actually are a way of us getting clearer about how we want to be in partnership with each other. And so the clearer the boundaries, the more that we can work on those relationships, the more that we can work on showing up with our truth and allowing others to show up in their truth without making one right or wrong or creating that space between us. Because if you think about it, the act of creating boundaries actually says, I still want to be in this relationship. It just needs to show up in a different way. But I value it enough that I want to be clear with myself and with you so that we can come from a place of peace and be together and grow together in our relationships. Brené Brown says, compassionate people ask what they need. They say no when they need to, and when they say yes, they mean it. They're compassionate because their boundaries keep them out of resentment. Now that's beautiful. And it can be uncomfortable to create boundaries, right? It's a practice. It's something that we continually have to play with to get more and more comfortable. But if we can take a step back and actually look at the fact that creating boundaries is actually choosing discomfort over resentment. That's the choice. Being a little uncomfortable to not create separation between us, those we care about, the things that we care about. And it's okay to be uncomfortable with it because we can remember the intention that brought us to that feeling of uncomfortability, which is compassion, which is self-love, which is loving other individuals so much that we want to be honest and we want to create a space for honesty in those relationships. It's not because we want to build up walls. It's because we want to tear them down. It's because we want to be experiencing each other from the place of love and compassion and our truth. When we fail to create boundaries and set up boundaries and we fail to hold people accountable, don't you find that we sometimes feel used and mistreated? And we sometimes even own that more than we should, right? Because it's one of the ways in which we stop being compassionate with ourselves and begin to beat ourselves up for those things that took place. When we fail to set boundaries and to hold people accountable, we can feel drained and lose perspective about who we are and how we want to show up in the world. And we really lose our true self, is what I have come to realize. When we actually move into practicing boundaries, we're invited to take ownership of 4 things. Our thoughts, we own them. Our feelings, our bodies, and our decisions. And aren't we here at Unity about taking responsibility for the things that we can control? And the things that we can control are not outside of us, they're inside of us that create the space to move out into the world. Likewise, when we create boundaries, we also give people permission to take ownership of their thoughts, of their feelings, of their bodies, of their decisions, without allowing us to feel like we own it or like we have to take it in, right? Because we're just in our truth. And we know we're able to self-differentiate where I begin and I end, and where somebody else begins and where they end. As Byron Katie says, there are only 3 kinds of businesses in the world: mine, yours, and God's. And she shares that when we're in God's business or other people's business, she asks the question, then who's minding yours? Who's minding your business? And so boundaries is what allows us to really not only create spaces in relationships, it's not about people not stepping beyond it, it's about us. It's about us not allowing us to step beyond it. It's about us owning our space. It's about us owning those thoughts, feelings, bodies, and decisions, and creating a sense of responsibility for the thing that we are truly responsible for, which is how we are showing up for ourselves and for the world. Now, it's a practice. As I said, here I am. I've been really feeling like I'm going to say, I think I'm pretty comfortable with speaking up with my boundaries, especially with family, I think. I've gone through practice, through experiences, I've just gotten better and better. And the one thing that I do feel like I need to work on more is what happens when those boundaries are crossed, right? I'm able to speak it, but am I able to really own it? Am I able to really live it? And yes, it's uncomfortable, but the practice is really about putting our mental, physical, and spiritual well-being as a priority. How many of us have a tough time prioritizing ourselves? How many of us are really looking for ways to set up practices that invite us to say, where am I in all of this? Who am I in all of this? And how I can show up even more. And, so much of this is just conditioning, but we talk about being selfless. How many of us feel that at times we've taken the idea of being selfless to an extreme where we lose the self? And so we hear all these stories and we hear all these teachings about being selfless and being selfless and being selfless, and we get the wrong impression that living into our boundaries and owning who we are in relationships is in some way egotistical. And so we shy away from it. But I believe that it's really an invitation to let go of the ego and move into self, true self, our divine self, the self that doesn't change. How many of us are familiar with losing ourselves at work? Or in an intimate relationship where we feel almost like we're absorbed by somebody else? It's part of the human condition, I think, and it's part of the spiritual practice to be able to recognize that more and more and do something about it. So that when we do step into relationships with whatever it is, we are not setting ourselves up, not only to lose ourselves, but to have more and more resentments. One of the things that I love, there's a teacher named Maria Namath. She talks about just energy, right? And energy leaks. And when we have resentments, when we are angry, when we are hurt, what we're doing is that's an energy leak. And so the more that we can close up those energy leaks, and I think boundaries are sort of like what can create that, the more we can use our energy for the things that we want. How many of us have wanted to live into a greater sense of self, to live into dreams, to spend time doing the things that bring us joy, that bring us peace, that bring us comfort, but we feel like, oh, well, that's selfish, or something in our brain is still wired to lose ourselves in it. Now, I think that Jesus, our master teacher, actually taught us ways of creating healthier boundaries in some of what he expressed, in some of what he was able to do. Because I think that Jesus, right, as our master teacher, not only came to remind us that we were sacred, but provided us ways in which we can honor our sacredness. And so how are we honoring that? One of the first things that I think he came to teach us is that we seek the wisdom within us, right? We seek the wisdom, the discernment within us to know what those boundaries are, to know what are the ways in which we can hold ourselves and others accountable in that. And he did that by also showing us the importance of self-care, because you do that in prayer, you do that in meditation, you do that in the pauses that you take in the experiences that you're moving through. And he himself taught us the importance of personal prayer time, to be centered, to become more self-actualized. In Matthew 6, he says, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen." Take a step back, he says. First and foremost, how are you nourishing yourself so that you can be a part of nourishing others? He also took personal break times, right? Like whether it was going off to pray in the wilderness or on the mountain for a night, or whether he took those really wonderful extended meditation retreats on his own for 40 days and 40 nights in nature, in the wilderness. He really took me time. You think about it, he did a lot in his ministry. His ministry was about others, and he knew that he had to take me time. How are we taking me time? How are we nourishing ourselves? How are we stepping back from the busyness of the world and saying we are a priority for ourselves? Because that me time is really about self-replenishing. It's about self-love, and I believe it's about self-awareness. Because that's where we come to recognize how sacred we are and how we want to honor that sacredness, that holiness that lives within us. When we are in the thoughts, feelings, bodies, and decisions of others, I cannot be in me. I cannot take the time in me time. So to take time to be in you, to reflect, to settle into your communion with the divine is one of the key strategies that Jesus came to show us for creating healthy boundaries. Second one is to be honest and direct. In Matthew chapter 5:37, he says, "Simply let your yes be yes and your no be no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one." In putting it in contemporary terms with my favorite, Brené Brown, clarity is kindness. How many times do our resentments and the things that we are holding ourselves and others about, it's just a lack of clarity. It's not being fully clear with the yes or the no's. And we talk a lot about saying that sacred yes, right, to life, the sacred yes to the opportunity, but I really want to invite us into the holy no, and sometimes the holy hell no, right? Like, it's just about being fully clear with ourselves and with others and not making that right or wrong, just making it what we need so that we can live out in the world without resentment and from a place of compassion and love for ourselves and for others. What happens when we say no, or we said yes, but we wanted to say no? It's their fault. They should have never even asked me. They should have known that I didn't want to do it, but now I have to do it. And all of a sudden, the resentment builds with the other individual. But the other aspect of it is, I should have said no. I said yes. Why am I doing this to myself? And you then begin to beat yourself up. So tired of that, right? Like, that can speak about energy leaks, like just be able to release and let go of that. And so to be really centered in that, and when I read that quote, it was like the evil one. Well, what is that evil one? I think it's the pleaser in each of us. It's that sense of ego that says that we have to be defined by what other people think of us. And so that's, I think, the evil one that sort of shows up within us every so often in relationships with whatever it may be, which leads us to the next one, which is please God, not people. Please yourself, the divine within you, not seeking to please others. In John 5, verse 44, it says, "How can you believe if you accept praise from one another, yet make no effort to obtain the praise that comes from the only God. Why do we do it? Why do we seek out pleasing other people? That, I think, is where the real discomfort lies, because we're being tugged from honoring who we are and wanting to believe that we are sacred and holy, but showing up like we don't believe it, like we have to be defined by other people. That, to me, is the great discomfort that we got to step into and recognize and really question where it comes from. Because we're not sacred because of what others expect of you or receive from you. We just are. I went to lunch with Faye, who does the platform, a couple of weeks ago, and she has a radio show, and somebody was like, oh, why? Do you sing? And she just responds in a very Faye way, no, I just am. Right? But we just are. How can we own that more fully? Oh, are you funny? Is that why you have a radio show? Do you sing? No, I just am. The things that we have in our lives that bring us joy and peace and love. Why do you have that? Because you're worth it already. You're worth it, right? Because you're sacred already. It doesn't matter what we did, what we didn't do. We just are. How can we really live into that? It's a tough one because it is about conditioning. Right? We're only going to be loved if we follow the rules, if we do what our parents want us to do, right? And so we got to start releasing some of that. Actually, we got to release all of it, but let's give ourselves a little space, right? Little by little. Another one, set priorities. Luke chapter 16, verse 13. No servant can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. This is me time. This is work time. This is me time. This is family time. This is me time. This is my intimate partner and I time. And to be clear about which ones we are in. Serving that in that moment until we choose to serve the other. Be clear. And the last thing I want to mention that Jesus showed us about boundaries is that we have to put it into practice. In Matthew, chapter 21, verse 28 through 31, he says, what do you think? There was a man who had 2 sons. He went to the first and said, son, go and work today in the vineyard. I will not, the son answered, but later changed his mind and went. Then the father went to the other son and said the same thing. He answered, I will, sir, but he did not go. Which of the 2 did what the father wanted? It's not about what we say. Even right now, if we're like, yes, I'm going to go out there and create healthy boundaries, it's about what we do. And the practice gets clearer and clearer. The practice helps us with that. But don't just say that we want healthy boundaries. Really go out and make them. Be willing to have that discomfort for the sake of your own, I was going to say sacredness, but for your own sanity. Right? To no longer be borderline incompetent, but be competent in who we are and how we show up in the world. That is how I think we release the resentments. We create more love. We create more peace. We create more compassion. It's how we clean up the other messes that we have allowed ourselves to be involved with. And that's how we create more peace within ourselves. I know that Martha, who's back there, Martha Creek, who spoke last week, shared the peace song. And it's like, oh, let there be peace and let it begin with me. And we go off and we're like, well, no, as long as they do it. But I do know that deep within our hearts, we know that peace begins with us. And so the more that we can cultivate it, especially by creating healthy boundaries, the more that not only we can live into peace, but we can cultivate it for humanity. And if you haven't noticed, the world needs a little more peace. So let's do our work. Let's do it with joy. Let's do it with a little bit of discomfort. And let us lean on each other as we move into a greater sense of who we are. Namaste. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Reverend Juan. Who is ready to go out there and create some healthy boundaries for yourself this week and the next week? Yes? And I just loved how you talked about a healthy boundary not being a disconnection of relationship, but actually is an invitation to have like agreements or alignment of how you're going to be in relationship with someone or something. So it builds a bridge, actually, and not a wall. So thank you so much for that. And let's just take a breath, shall we? With all that spiritual nourishment that we've received so far this service, from the meditation to the music to the daily word and the message, it is great to receive. And now we have our opportunity to give in gratitude through being in the participation of the law of giving and receiving. We get to prepare our gifts and our offerings to share with Unity on the Bay so we can continue to give to our community. So if you're ready to do that, you can do so by an envelope. If you need an envelope, we have them available. You can go green by texting the word give to the phone number that you see on your screen. It's 833-245-5645. You can go online, unityonthebay.org. However you choose to give, just know that we are grateful for it. I'm going to give you some time of sacred silence to prepare your offering. Thank you for your gifts. Thank you, God, for the gift of giving. And now let's bless these gifts together with our offertory prayer. We will say, divine love that I am blesses all that I give and all that I receive. Amen. Okay, so now we're going to take a moment to bless our children, whether it's a child that's in family ministry, a child in your home, a child in your heart. Bring your hands together, create some energy, and extend your energy forward as we say the children's blessing. Children, we love you. We bless you. We appreciate you. We behold the Christ in you, and we see you doing great things. Awesome. And just also sending an extra ounce of children's blessings as they prepare to go back to school from spring break, and a parent's blessing for that as well. And also as they prepare for testing, many of them in the upcoming second half of the year. So remember that we are here to pray with you, to hold you and your intentions in sacred prayer or in celebration. So if you'd like prayer, just come on up and visit with one of our prayer chaplains who will be available to pray with you. And with that, we are going to, share one last thing. Okay, it's March Madness, it's March Meditation Madness, and today is your last day to submit your 6 mantra words. So, are you ready for your mantra word for today? The mantra word for today is chakra. Can you say that with me? Chakra. Okay? You may be wondering, what are those energy centers that align your body? We have 7 main ones. We have several others. And if you're interested, look it up. It's a great, great practical tool to learn from. And with that, we're going to give it over to Reverend Juan to close us out for our service.
I'm just laughing because I looked over at Dale and we had the same thought when you said chakra. And you asked us,
Chakra
we were like,
Khan?
Chakra Khan,
Chakra
Chakra
Khan.
Khan. Like,
Where?
we may have been in some of the same clubs. So anyways, with that, thank you again for joining us, for being a part of this community, for witnessing each other, for giving yourselves that gift and others that gift. I'm going to invite you to please stand so that we can say our prayer for protection, and we'll follow that with our peace song. So together, let us affirm. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.